Wyoming, the least populated state in the US, a place where sagebrush stretches like oceans across vast plains, until suddenly, they don't. In the western part of the state, the plains suddenly and sharply rise up into mountains, forming rivers, wildernesses, and forests. And hidden in all of that wilderness is one range that's eluded me for decades. I've tried twice to get up into these mountains and have a real adventure, but I failed both times. First was due to a friend having severe altitude sickness, and the second time was due to bad weather that my wife and I were not prepared for. And this time, I wasn't leaving until I saw the Cirque towers, so I can finally check them off my bucket list. This is the Wind River Range. Everyone knows Wyoming has two giants, Yellowstone and Grand Tetons National Park, which I'll be going to in 2 weeks to check off another bucket list item. But Wyoming is also packed with spots that you might not recognize. Here's a map of Wyoming. I've already mentioned the two heavy hitters that everyone knows about, Yellowstone National Park and Grand Teton National Park. But the state is also packed with places that get so little foot traffic they almost get wholly ignored altogether. You have the Absaroka Range, Shoshone National Forest, Owl Creek, Bighorn Mountains. Down south you have Medbo, that's further down here. You have Flaming Gorge down here. You have the Wyoming Range. You have the Jedediah Smith Wilderness over here. But there's one spot that sticks out like a sore thumb, and that's the Wind River Range. The winds are a bit of a hybrid. They are both desolate and can be overcrowded. It's a place that's both famous and forgotten. And that's what drew me originally to the mountains. A lot of people drive north up to the big parks and see Grand Tetons in Yellowstone, but there's a whole other group of people who seek wilderness and desolation and a little bit more rugged terrain, and they're the group that heads to the Wind River Range. The very first trip I took was about a decade ago, and our plan was to head into the Titcomb Basin, a very remote and wild area in the Wind River Range. And on our way up, I had a friend get serious elevation sickness, so we actually had to turn around and give up our plans. The second time I headed up to the winds, my wife and I weren't quite prepared for the weather coming, and we decided to make it a lovely, very long day trip instead. So even though this might not be the longest hike, it might not be the most exotic, I felt like it earned a spot on my bucket list because it's already been an adventure and it's already been something I want to do, so why not add it in permanently? The Cirque Towers is now on my bucket list, and the best way to get to this remote spot in the range is by the Big Sandy Trailhead. Now, the Big Sandy Trailhead is one of the most popular ways to get into the range, but it's still quite remote. It's hours away from the nearest town. There's quite a lot of rocky roads, washboards, steep grades. We got there no problem, but it is remote. Once you get to the trailhead, there's plenty of national forest land to camp around. So if you get there a day early, which what we did, we decided to establish a base camp near the Big Sandy River and have a chill day while we waited for the rest of the team to catch up. Typically when you're camping in national forest land, you're left alone. You're either in such a remote spot that no one will really know you're there, or the people around you get the vibe of dispersed camping and the fact that you probably want to be left alone. But while we were camping there, we actually bumped into two rangers who were checking sites. The first night, the ranger was just looking for a bear who had broken into a summer home down the road. We told him we hadn't seen a bear, and he was off. We weren't super worried, but we had just thrown steaks on the grill, so it was in the back of our mind.
We cannot open because the bears are gonna come here.
Can I open what?
This. I just opened it.
It's fine. The second rangers that came and checked on us was the next morning. They were going from spot to spot to spot, making sure people weren't having fires because there was a strict fire ban in the area. And I personally like seeing the rangers. I wasn't doing anything wrong. I knew I wasn't going to get in trouble. And it was nice to see that they were out there checking on people and making sure people were following the rules. And in a way, that's one of the best ways we're going to be able to preserve these places. The next day, the crew finally made it. Our plan was to hike the fairly popular Cirque Loop, hiking in on the Big Sandy Trailhead and then hiking out using the Fremont Trail. A lot of people actually hike the opposite direction, but I am so glad we took the way we went. If you follow the trail, you hit both. It's a little steeper than the other direction, but you do hit both of the elevation milestones on the first day, and that means the second day is a nice cruisy, mostly downhill. Well, we just started down the trail and it is busy, really busy. I don't think I've ever seen so many cars in overflow parking, and there's a ton of people on the trail. So that's not something we're typically used to hiking wilderness areas, but it is what it is, and it's still beautiful out here. The first half of the Big Sandy Trail is a gentle rise through forests and meadows. After about 6 miles, you hit Big Sandy Lake, which, if we had more time, I would have been happy to hang out there a lot longer.
Under the covers, your place, my place, it doesn't matter.
After a little lunch break, we began our main ascent. We followed Big Sandy Trailhead up into the hills alongside North Creek. The trail was super steep, but we had solid footing the entire time, and the views, well, see for yourself.
Falling for
Now, there are 2 main elevation milestones on this trail. The first is at the very top of the Big Sandy Trail, called Jackass Pass. Now, honestly, I didn't think it was all that bad. The views distracted me every step of the way, and before we knew it, we were at the top looking down on Lonesome Lake, the heart of the Cirque of Towers. The Cirque is one of the most popular hiking destinations in the Winds for a reason, and there are a lot of hiking destinations in the Winds. But the Cirque make you feel like you're not in middle of nowhere, Wyoming, but more in Patagonia. You have jagged, huge mountains surrounding alpine lakes, sparse forests, and even some glaciers. Now, I wanted to camp at Lonesome Lake, but as you can imagine, it was pretty packed, being a holiday weekend. So we decided to aim for the next elevation milestone.
So it looks we are gonna need to go up that way, where you see that tiny snow patch up there.
Sheer cliffs tower in just about every direction, and this is where you start going up to Texas Pass. It looked a lot scarier than it actually was. We flew up the trail knowing just on the other side is camp, dinner, and our final destination for the night. Oh, and the views going up Texas Pass? Probably top 10 in my hiking career. The backside of Texas Pass was a little sketchy. It was steep and dusty, making good footing really hard to find. And we didn't even take our cameras out to shoot this part. I probably should have gotten a GoPro shot or something to show you guys, but I was honestly just trying to make it down the mountain. I had a pretty big slip along the way, and the only reason I came out unscathed is because of my hiking pole, actually. You can see why. My hiking pole caught me as I was falling and did save me from a pretty serious tumble, but it sacrificed itself along the way. I guess that's what it's meant for. Doing both passes in one day was a smart move. While Lonesome Lake was pretty packed, Texas Lake we had totally to ourselves. Part of me didn't want to share this next part because I like keeping these videos full of good vibes and good times. But I realized that sharing only highlights is a little disingenuous. Camping, especially taking long backpacking trips into the wilderness, isn't always a walk in the park. And that's kind of the fun of it, right? Well, we're seriously embracing some Type 2 fun. Let's see, let's what happened. The tent snapped. This snap here. Never seen that happen before. We've used this tent 4 times. Tent snapped as soon as it started pouring rain. That's pretty cool. And then all the water we filtered earlier, someone told us that the lake we filtered it from is getting people sick. So that's pretty cool. That's free cash money. And now we're in a broken tent waiting a big thunderstorm out. So that's cool. We were dry in there. But one of the main poles just snapped while we were putting it together. I've never seen that happen. Some Type 2 fun. I was pretty heated in the moment, as you could probably tell. But it is really frustrating when you get an expensive piece of gear and it fails on you. I mean, you really rely on this stuff out there. And I've rarely had my gear fail. But to have a brand new tent break on you on the brink of a thunderstorm, that's not so cool. But I reached out to Big Agnes and they are happy to replace the pole set. But honestly, I don't know how confident I feel about using it again in the wilderness. Even if it is a new set of poles, how do I know it's not going to happen again? And that's why gear reputation is so important. Luckily, my wife used her head and her hiking poles to prop up the tent in a way that kept us dry throughout the night. Sometimes the most important gear isn't what's in your bag, but it's what's in your brain. One piece of gear that did seem to work was our water filters. Luckily, none of us got sick from drinking the supposedly bad water from Lonesome Lake. With all the bad luck piling up at once, the next day was smooth sailing. Seriously, it was great. Perfect weather, hot coffee, decent fishing, and most importantly, an all downhill trail. The second day, after we finished at Texas Pass, we followed the Shadow Lake Trail, past Shadow Lake, onto the Haley Pass Trail. From the Haley Pass Trail, we went onto the Fremont Trail. That's a lot of trail names, but as you can see, it's pretty straightforward. We never had a problem following any of these trails. They were all very well used and worn, and the further we got down from Texas Pass, the more people we saw either camping lower below or starting to head up the pass themselves. The cool thing about this trail is that all of these paths looked completely different from the day before. Despite being only a few miles away, the tight forest meadows turned into high plains covered with rocks and dotted with pines. Even though it was downhill, it was still a strenuous 14-mile day. But we made it in high spirits, and the best part, there's actually a lodge that was a mile away from our campsite that served burgers. And what's even better is after we ate dinner, we hitched a ride back with some strangers to our camp, which was on my wife's bucket list. So she got to check something off, and I got to check something off. 2 failed trips and 1 broken tent later, I finally can mark off the Cirque of Towers from my bucket list. Here it is, Cirque of Towers Loop. Now, summer's not quite over. There's still a little bit of time where the weather is going to be warm enough to do one last adventure. And the one last adventure is maybe the bucket list item I've been the most excited about. We'll see if we can do it, but the Teton Crest Trail is coming.